And welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and let's talk about what is currently my favorite commander. And by that, I mean my favorite commander to build around. Of course, I'm a avid deck builder, and I just like throwing decks together all the time. And certain commanders sometimes will grab my attention because there's a lot of different directions you can go with them, and they're also a tad underwhelming, I would say. When the backgrounds came out in Battle for Baldur's Gate, I'll be honest, I wasn't the biggest fan. Okay, I didn't love the idea of an enchantment in the command zone. So for that reason, the background commanders went mostly ignored by me. And then a few weeks later, after I'd looked at a few, I made a video about some interesting pairings with backgrounds and background commanders. And then about a year later, well, almost a year later, I made a video about what was at that time my favorite commander to build around, which was Lulu, Loyal Holy Fant, 3 and a white, Elephant Angel, 3/2 with flying at the beginning of your end step. If a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on each tapped creature you control, then untap them. I just thought there was so many neat, interesting directions to go with that commander. And of course, because it's a background commander, depending on the background you pick, whatever that background's doing, and also whatever color it is, there's lots of different directions to go. I threw out a bunch of ideas in that video. Directions you could go with Lulu. I put a black-white version in that video if you guys want to check that out. I myself ended up making a Lulu deck because I like that commander so much. I have my Lulu and Guild Artisan deck, one of my favorite decks without question. So that was the first background commander that really grabbed my interest. Vhal, Candlekeep Researcher is the second. That's the one I'm going to be talking about in this video. And this commander, I already talked about it on my channel. I made a video a couple months ago talking about my red-blue Vhal Candlekeep Researcher deck. That one with Tavern Brawler, where I'm doing a whole bunch of neat things in that deck. A lot of really interesting things in that deck. So you can go check out that version of the deck that I made. It is a really underwhelming commander at first glance, I would say. But the more you think about it, the more open-ended it becomes and the more you can do with it. I guess, again, because I am more in the method 2 deck building, again, you'll have to go watch that video to understand what I'm saying there. Because I'm more in that camp now, my commander is becoming not as important. I want to be using it, but it's not like integral or crucial to what I'm doing in my deck. So for that reason, it better fits with my strategy of using underwhelming commanders, because of course, if your commander is not that powerful, then it's not that big of a drawback if you don't have it on the battlefield. I know that can be a little convoluted, but it actually does work. So if you haven't seen it before, Vhal, Candlekeep Researcher, 3 and a blue, human wizard, 2/3 with vigilance, tap, add an amount of colorless equal to Vhal, Candlekeep Researcher's toughness. This mana can't be spent to cast spells from your hand. So your commander's giving you at least 3 mana minimum. And obviously you want to be bumping that toughness. Let's throw a Slagworm Armor on there, right? Give our commander a huge butt, add a ton of mana. That is an obvious theme here, no matter what direction you're going, right? No matter what direction you go with Vhal, very obviously, you are going to be raising your commander's toughness so that you can add more mana, and then you're going to find ways to cast spells from anywhere other than your hand. The first time I saw Vhal, and I think in that background video I originally did, I thought the best pairing here, and a lot of other people did as well, was Raised by Giants. 5 and a green, background, commander creatures you own have base power and toughness 10/10 and are giants in addition to their other types. So of course, with this on the battlefield, your commander is a 10/10. Pretty great. And I will point out your commander has vigilance, so you can still attack with your commander, and then on the second main phase, tap it to use it for mana, right? Hold on a second. Again, this is another reason why Vhal is such a fantastic commander. It casts spells from anywhere other than your hand. Of course, the command zone is not your hand. So you can cast your commander on turn 4 or whenever you have 4 mana. And then the very next turn, without even playing a land, you have 4 mana already, plus your commander's butt. That's 7 mana. So you can very easily cast your Raised by Giants from the command zone because, of course, it's not from your hand. So keep in mind that your Vhal will help cast whatever background you have. Really great commander, am I right? Now, the reason I was looking at a blue-green version of this deck is because another funny old card that I've talked about quite a few times on my channel, Pan Glacial Worm. And I mean, it is one of the most unique cards ever printed. I mean, I'm not going to get into it again. I talked about it in a video previous where you could build an entire deck around this. I've also talked about this on 5 cards videos because I think it's a super easy slot into any deck where you're doing a lot of searching already. And guess what? Green decks, you're doing a lot of searching already, almost guaranteed, right? You're ramping all the time. So it's very easy to throw Panglacial Worm into any deck. And what ends up happening is on turn 8, when I need gas and I draw a Nature's Lore off the top, I don't really need a Nature's Lore, but hold on, that Nature's Lore essentially turns into tutor for my Panglacial Worm, because of course you cast it, and then while you're searching your library for a forest card, you can then cast your Panglacial Worm. It is a 9/5 trampler, pretty good. I mean, it's not like the scariest creature in the world, but late in the game, that's pretty good for closing out a game, I think. And of course, while you're searching your library, you may cast it from your library, so you're not casting it from your hand, you're casting it from your library. That's another direction we can go with Vhal. Of course, you can very easily throw a Future Sight in any Vhal deck to cast stuff from the top of your library as well. Like, there's so many options, and as I was doing this, I was coming up with more and more stuff. The blue in this deck is going to be very similar to the blue of the other deck. I sort of use that as a base, right? The artifacts and most of the blue stuff is going to be the same. I basically swapped out the red for the green, and I put in a bunch of stuff that works, like Panglacial Worm and like Evolving Door. Another funny card that I thought was a great fit here. 2 and a green artifact, pay 1 and tap, sacrifice a creature, count the color of the sacrificed creature, then search your library for a creature card. That's exactly that many colors, plus 1, exile that card, and you may cast the exiled card, activate only as a sorcery. And as I've pointed out again, they're doing the exile tribal stuff or the cast anywhere from your hand. Evolving Door is doing that. Evolving Door is casting from exile. So keep that in mind. This is a very underplayed card in the format, I think, and it works here as well. We do have a fair amount of colorless creatures in this deck, so you can sacrifice a colorless creature to go get a monocolored creature. So Burnished Heart, for example, which of course is a great fit in this deck. I normally wouldn't put in a green deck, but it has that ability to pay 3, which of course we can just use our commander for, right? Any activated ability will work great here. I can sacrifice my Burnished Heart if I don't need the lands and go get any monocolored creature out of my deck and cast it with my Vhal, and maybe cast my Panglacial Worm while I'm at it, because of course I'm searching my library with Evolving Door, so it works there as well. If I got enough mana, I can do all that all at once, right? Your commander can be used to cast anything with Evolving Door. I can also sacrifice a monocolored creature to obviously go get a 2-color creature, like, for example, my Colossal Sky Turtle. And of course, Colossal Sky Turtle, just a fantastic creature all around, but it's got those channel abilities that we can use our commander for. Again, whenever you're putting a Vhal deck together in any combination of colors, you got to throw those channel cards in there, the cycling cards, all of that, because of course, your commander's mana can very easily be used for that. What else are we doing in the blue-green version here? Murkfiend Liege obviously seems like a great fit, right? It's going to untap all green and or blue creatures you control during each other player's untap step. Of course, untapping our commander can be very helpful so that we can do some of this other stuff on our other opponent's turns. Battery Bearer is a very interesting card that fits the theme of what we're doing here. Again, a card that is very weird in where it fits, and so for that reason, of course, you're not going to see it in a lot of commander decks. 2 blue and a green, Human Artificer, 3/4. Creatures you control have tap, add a colorless. This mana can't be spent to cast non-artifact spells. So that's kind of weird, right? We want to be doing this in a artifact theme in Simic. You don't really see that much. But as I've pointed out, this is the Power Stone ability, right? We can use that mana for activated abilities, which of course in this deck we have a ton, right? We can now tap our creatures down to sacrifice our Burnished Heart, for example, right? Stuff like that. And whenever you cast an artifact spell with mana value 6 or greater, draw a card. And yes, there actually is a few of those. For example, Chromatic Orb, right? That's another artifact that I'm going to put in a Vhal deck no matter what, because it has a couple of things, like you can use mana of any color. That's probably the big one, but also has that draw card for each color among permanents you control, which 5 mana, that's not great to draw 2 cards, obviously, in a Simic deck, but our commander can easily pay that, right? It almost becomes tap, draw 2 cards with our commander, so pretty good. Other neat fits in this version, Experiment Crash is a really neat fit here. Funny enough, I just talked about this in my Commanders That Used to Be Super Scary video. What you can do here, of course, is you can chuck a counter on your Vhal, and of course, that's already good because we want our Vhal to be bigger, so now it's going to be even bigger and tap for even more mana, and again, if you're attacking with it. And now our Kraj has the activated ability of our commander, which is, of course, add an amount of colorless equal to its toughness, which Experiment Kraj has a 6 toughness. So now our Experiment Kraj is going to tap for 6 colorless mana. Pretty good. The Pride of Hulklad is a pretty fantastic fit here because, of course, we are in a Toughness Matters deck here. 10 NA green, Crocodile Elk Turtle, 215. But as I've said a few times already, whenever you see a creature now that is that expensive, definitely there's going to be a cost reduction on casting it. This spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total toughness of creatures you control. So it is very likely, because of course our commander is going to have a big butt, you will only be paying a green mana for this. So that alone is a good reason to put it in the deck. Has Defender, but 2 blue until end of turn. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains whenever this creature deals combat damage. Player draw cards equal to its toughness, and it can attack as though it didn't have Defender. So of course you can use this on this, or we can use that ability on our commander. And of course our commander can help pay for that ability as well, right? So it works in so many ways in this deck. The 13th Doctor works for so many reasons in this deck as well. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, put a +1 counter on target creature. Of course, that's the theme of the deck. We're casting stuff from anywhere other than our hand. We got lots of things we can do with that. But also at the beginning of your end step, untap each creature control with a counter on it. So now we can chuck a counter on our commander. Again, gets bigger, but now it can start untapping it on our end step so we can use it on other people's turns again. And of course, we can use it for probably the most busted thing in this deck, which is Thrasios. I mean, this was just an easy slot into this version of the deck. Of course, has one of the best activated abilities out there on a creature. Pay 4, scry 1, then reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, otherwise draw cards. So of course, with our commander, we can really start going to town with Thrasios' abilities. This is a fantastic version of Vhal. The blue-green version that I made here, really neat. But I'm not done there. I kept on going because, again, as I was building this deck, I started thinking of other things you could do with Vhal. Because casting things from anywhere other than your hand covers a lot, right? Why it's such a great commander. And I thought about one of my favorite cards, Dream Devourer. 1 and a black, Demon Cleric, 03. Each non-land card in your hand without Foretell has Foretell. Its Foretell cost is equal to its mana cost, reduced by 2. So this card, I have this in my name as one deck. The reason why is because I just have a lot of really expensive things in that deck. So I can just exile that thing from my hand for 2 mana, and then on a later turn, cast it for 2 cheaper. So it's just a way to cheat things out. But of course, with Vhal, now I can cast those things, right? Vhal works great with Foretell, of course. So I can exile anything from my hand with Foretell, and then the following turn, use my commander to pay for it. So fantastic combination there. So I thought, maybe I can make a black-blue version of Vhal as well. Gotta find a background first, right? Of course. Agent of Shadow Thieves is the one that I chose. 1 and a black background. Commander creatures you own have. Whenever this creature attacks a player, if no opponent has more life than that player, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. It gains death touch and indestructible until end of turn. So again, our commander does have vigilance. It's very easy to attack with it. So we can attack. We'll put a counter on our commander. It makes our commander bigger, so it does work. And as our commander gets bigger and bigger, we more so probably want to be attacking with it, and give it an indestructible and death touch ain't exactly bad either, right? If we have, some board wipe we want to cast, we can just attack with our commander, give it indestructible, cast that board wipe on our second main phase, and then quickly rebuild with our commanders. But what else are we doing here? And I thought, well, what does black do really, really well? Casting stuff from anywhere other than your hand. And of course, the Praetor's Grasp thing works fantastic here. Another direction you can go with Vhal, right? Search target opponent's library for a card and exile it. Then that player shuffles. You may look at and play that card for as long as it remains exiled. So of course, we're casting it from exile. We're casting it from anywhere other than your hand. And obviously, there is a ton of cards in black that are doing that. That's the theme of the blue-black version. Author of Shadows, 4 and a black, Shade, Warlock 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, exile all cards from all opponents' graveyards. Choose a non-land card exiled this way. You may cast the card for as long as it remains exiled. And you may spend mana, as though it mana of any color, to cast that spell. So we can exile some giant thing from our opponent's graveyard. And again, the important wording here is you may use mana of any color, so that means the colorless doesn't matter here anymore, right? because we're using mana of any color. And that's the wording on all these cards now, right? Praetor's Grasp, the original card that was doing this, doesn't say that, but all the new cards do. All the new cards have that wording of you may use mana of any color. So it doesn't matter that our commander is just using colorless. It doesn't matter. And of course, there's lots of cards that fit in that theme. Hostage Taker, another great one. Again, this is a commander staple and obviously fits here as well. 2 black and a blue, human pirate 2/3. When Hostage Taker enters the battlefield, exile another target creature or artifact until Hostage Taker leaves the battlefield. So it's a great way to sort of deal with one of your opponent's creatures or artifacts. You may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled, and mana of any type may be spent to cast the spell. Halo Forager, another great one. 1 blue and a black fairy rogue, 3/1 with flying. When it enters the battlefield, you may pay X. So here we don't have a activated ability, but we have to put X mana into this. And of course, again, our commander can be used to put mana into this ability. When you do, you may cast target instant or sorcery card with mana value X from a graveyard. So again, could be your opponent's graveyard, could be yours, without paying its mana cost. If the spell would be put into graveyard, exile it instead. So this is a neat way to steal something out of our opponent's graveyard that we want to cast, and our commander essentially can be used to cast it. Hoarding Broodlord, of course, slam dunk here. 5 black, black, black dragon, 7/6 with Convoke and flying. When Hoarding Broodlord enters the battlefield, search your library for a card and exile it face down, then shuffle for as long as that card remains exiled. You may cast it. And of course, you may cast it with your commander, and spells you cast from exile have Convoke. Great. We're doing that a ton in this deck, obviously, right? As I was building this deck, I built a bunch of versions, and as I was doing so, I kept stumbling across cards where I'm like, oh, that's a great fit with Vhal as well. So some of the cards as I go along here actually probably could go in the other versions, like the original red-blue version I did, because they are fantastic fits. For example, Basalt Monolith. This is like an auto-include in any Vhal deck because, of course, I mean, it's already a great mana rock, but it doesn't untap during your untap step, and you gotta pay 3 to untap it. But of course, that's just tap your commander, right? Tap your commander, untap your Basalt Monolith. Assuming it has nothing on it. Just bare bones, naked Vhal, Candlekeep Researcher can very easily untap Basalt Monolith. So what this does in the deck is essentially becomes turn your commander's mana into mana that can be used for anything, right? It no longer has that restriction. And of course, with all the untappers, it gets even better than that. The Mana Rig, fantastic fit in any Vhal deck because now we can use our commander's butt to start drawing cards. Pay XXX and tap. Look at the top X cards of your library, put up to 2 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. So with our commander, again, naked, nothing on it, that's 3 mana, which of course X is 1. So we don't get to look at the top 2 cards. It essentially becomes tap, draw a card, which is perfectly fine. But as we get our commander bigger, right, we put in a quarter shield on it. Now it is a 2/6. Now it becomes put the top 2 cards of your library into your hand. If we can get a Slagworm Armor on it, now it becomes look at the top 3 cards and put 2 of them into your hand, right? It gets really, really good. Absolute slam dunk, I think, in any Vhal deck is Ice Cauldron. Funny old card. Again, another one that I've talked about on my channel a bunch. And, I threw it in this version, but it probably should go in all the versions of this commander's decks because it is a way to just, and I'm not going to go over what all this card does. You can go watch older videos where I talk about it. It, again, sort of like the Basalt Monolith, kind of turns your commander's butt into mana that can be used for anything. But even more so, it allows you to just exile a card from your hand, okay? Much like the Dream Devourer, that's sort of how I thought of it. Ice Cauldron, what it does is sort of gives a card foretell, right? You can just tap it to exile a card from your hand. And just like with Praetor's Grasp, again, it can be cast at any time for the rest of the game, even if your Ice Cauldron leaves the battlefield, okay? Rather than reading out this entire card, I'm going to explain to you how it can work. I can just tap this to exile any card from my hand, which I can then use to cast with my Vhal because, of course, I'm casting it from exile. So this is just a slam dunk in any Vhal deck. Moreover, you can put mana into it. Of course, it has that X ability that I can dump mana into with my Vhal. So it becomes, in this case, an even better foretell because, of course, Dream Devourer only reduces by 2. Here, we can reduce by whatever we put into X, essentially. So absolute slam dunk here. That is the black blue version of Vhal Candlekeep Researcher that I made, and I thought, why not finish out the cycle and make a blue-white version as well? Let's do it. And for this version, I decided my white background here is Noble Heritage, 1 and a white background. Commander creatures you own have when this creature enters the battlefield and at the beginning of your upkeep, each player may put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature they control. For each opponent who does, you gain protection from that player until your next turn. Seems pretty good. I mean, this does work in a little bit of a pillow fort way, which is great because I'd say we will in a little bit more of a control-y theme here. Obviously, we're in blue-white colors, but we get to put counters on our commander. That's, again, why I chose this one. You could choose other ones, I guess. I think this is the best fit here. Obviously, in blue and white colors, the best thing to be doing here is Foretell, Raynar, Ever Watchful. This is a more Foretell version than we have had with the other versions, of course, because white, blue are the best colors for that. Obviously, we also have Vega the Watcher, because whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, you get to draw a card. So that's going to be a slam dunk with our commander. We got a lot of the Foretell cards already, of course. Without a doubt, they're going to be great in this deck, like Glorious Protector. If I'm going to put a board wipe in my deck, I'm going to use the one that fits the theme. So this would be probably the only case where I would ever put a Doomscar, because I'm casting things from exile a lot. Obviously, Ethereal Valkyrie, also fantastic here. This is kind of like Dream Devour a little bit, where it is putting cards and turning them into Foretell cards in exile so that we can then cast them with our commander. And again, we have a lot of things that are actually kind of really expensive, like Colossus of Akros. I have in every version of this deck because I just think this is a really funny card. It is a great way to close out a game. And so I left it in every version of the deck. So anyone asking, what's the win con for this deck? Here's your win con. There is guaranteed one win con in every version of this deck because they all have Colossus of Akros. I actually think this is a great card in Commander. 8 mana, artifact creature, golem, 10/10, defender, indestructible. Has monstrosity 10 and you have to pay 10. And of course, that's why you probably never seen this card in a commander game, but why it works particularly good here. If we can foretell this, again, in the black version, maybe we can foretell it. There's other versions where you can exile it and then cast it from exile. That's likely what you want to do. I mean, you can just get to 8 mana, obviously, but with our commander, if we can get it into exile with one of our Foretell options, now it's a lot easier for us to cast it. And the monstrosity is really easy. I do it very easily with every version that I've played of this deck. The monstrosity 10, I know it seems like a lot, but if your commander has a Slagworm armor on it, there's 9, right? So not hard to do at all. And when it becomes monstrous, it has trample and can attack as though it didn't have defender. And of course, you're putting 10 +1/+1 counters on it. So it is now a 20/20 trampling indestructible creature. I mean, it's not a guarantee, but it's a pretty great way to help close out the game. It's funny to me how many people will jump through the hoops to put the Merit Lage combo together, right? The Dark Depths, I want that Merit Lage token, 20/20 indestructible flyer. This is a 20/20 indestructible trampler. Pretty much the exact same thing. Nobody seems to go after this one. I don't know why. I think it's great. It works in every version of this deck. A couple other neat things we're doing here. I threw Righteousness in this deck, in this version of the deck, obviously, because it's a white card. Target blocking creature gets +7/+7 to end a turn. I just thought it would be funny. You know, again, we can leave our commander up, or it's obviously untapping all the time, so we can very easily have it untapped on our opponent's turn. They attack us with a creature. We have that really nice gotcha moment where our commander becomes a 9/10, and we probably likely will kill whatever creature is attacking us. And then after we've done that, now our commander's got a giant butt and we can use all that mana for something that we have on the table already, like our Colossus of Akros, right? Something like that. So that's a pretty neat fit in the deck. And Robostars, what a slam dunk in this version of the deck, right? 1 and a white, artifact equipment with equip 1. And of course, equipment also work really great with Vhal, right? Vhal can very easily tap to basically attach equipment to herself, because it's rare you're going to find an equipment that is more than 3. So it's very easy. Again, that Accorder Shield, whenever you play it, you just tap your commander and it attaches right to her, right? So equipment work really, really well with Vhal. Equipped creature gets +0/+3. So we're bumping the toughness of our commander. Great. So we're already up to 6 here. Our commander's now tapping for 6 mana. But also, it's got an activated ability, which also is really easy to pay for in this deck. 1 and a white, equipped creature phases out. So it's a fantastic way to protect our commander. Absolute slam dunk in this version of the deck. There's the white-blue version. I made a red-blue, green-blue, black blue and white blue version of this deck. I guess I didn't make a mono blue version, oh well, but I made all the other different color combinations. Which one is your favorite? You guys let me know in the comments below which one you prefer. Again, if you want the blue-red version, that's in that old video I did already. The other three are all in the description below if you're interested in checking them out yourself. You can move stuff around here a lot. Again, I basically took the blue template sort of from the original one. I took out a couple cards that didn't work. Obviously, I did the sliver thing there, took those out. But for the most part, I kept the blue cards that I was using in that version and sort of used it for all these versions. But as I moved from blue-green to blue-black, it changed a little. I took out a few cards, added in like the Ice Cauldron, and then I kept those cards and moved to the blue-white version and changed a few more cards. So it changes a little bit throughout. You can, if you want to build one version of this deck, let's say you want to build the blue-black version, I would likely take a look at all of the other versions and see if there's any cards that also work in the version that you're doing. And, you know, if you're serious about making a really interesting Vhal deck, which I think you should be because it's a fantastic commander, you might want to take a look at all of them and see which cards work best in that particular theme. That is it for today, though, and thanks for tuning in.